Hi, everyone. It's me, Krylios, Team Racing Productions MC and producer. And joining me today is Ben Bergmann. Welcome.
Hello. Good
Hello,
afternoon.
hello. Good afternoon. It's great to have you here. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much. Excited to talk to
Awesome.
you.
Great to hear that. Great to hear that. So let's begin. I'd love to have you introduce yourself to our audience and
Sure.
tell us a little bit about your experience and background.
Awesome. So my name's Ben Bergmann. I'm running for DC Council in Ward 3. I'm an attorney. That's my current profession. So I have a lot of experience working on anti-corruption work and antitrust work. So I have experience working on big, complex investigations. I think that'll come in handy with the respect to the council's oversight work. I'm also a former elementary school teacher. I taught fifth grade social studies in Houston, Texas. It's where I met my wife. She was a middle school teacher. So I've cared about kids and about schools for a long, long time. And now I'm a public school dad myself. I have a 5-year-old in kindergarten, and I have a 2-year-old who actually she's turning 2 on Thursday in daycare in DCPS. I mean, not DCPS, she will be, but she's at a daycare right now. There they are. And, one of the reasons I'm running is because I think the city faces an existential crisis with the fact that it's just so difficult to raise a family here. It's so expensive to pay for childcare. Housing is extremely unaffordable, especially in Ward 3, which is obviously, the wealthiest part of the city, the part of the city where there are no single family homes on Redfin at any one time for less than $1 million. You might get one gem, but I guarantee you it won't sell for that. It'll be over $1 million. And so it's this city, I think, faces a real crisis. How can people gain their financial footing here, raise a family here, and age in place here? And those are the three things that are the key to a thriving city. We see cities in California where people who are teachers and firefighters and work at the local restaurant have to commute an hour and a half in to work because it's impossible to live there. And we're on track to that, and we need to do more to steer away. So that's a big reason I'm running. I'm an ANC commissioner, so I'm the chair of ANC 3D. So it's about 20,000 folks in Ward 3. And one of the big things that we talk a lot about is transit and public safety in terms of the roads and bringing traffic fatalities and collisions down. We've had a Vision Zero goal in the district for a long time, but traffic fatalities have gone up year over year. So it's a branding campaign. It's very slick, but we aren't making real progress. And that, I think, is reflective of a larger problem, which is a lack of vision in DC with the challenges that we have. And I think we have some big challenges that have been caused by the pandemic. We also have these older challenges of the lack of affordable housing, the lack of affordable childcare, inequitable access to opportunity, schools that are excellent in Ward 3 and struggling in other parts of the city. Those are pre-pandemic problems. Now we have other problems, and we can't just keep doing what we're doing. We need real leadership and people who are open to creative thinking. So that's why I'm running in a nutshell.
Awesome. Tell me how you plan to tackle some of these big challenges that you've identified, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic ones, if elected to the DC Council.
So that's an excellent question. I'd say the first thing, folks who are listening, go to my website, benbergmann.com. I'm proud of the fact that I put out some very detailed plans and goals that folks can react to. I'd say two things. One, we have to be realistic about the fact that some things take many years to accomplish, right? We're reducing the cost of housing, making childcare something that is universal, which is something I've talked about, that we've made incredible gains for families by having free pre-K 3 and pre-K 4. And if we we can begin that process. It'll be a long, maybe 2 decades, just like pre-K, to have universal public schools starting lower for toddlers and for infants. It's something that they do elsewhere in the world. It just seems crazy to Americans because we're not used to it, but it's not at all something that's beyond our abilities. But that's something that will take a long time. But you don't make progress towards those things, but without sort of starting now with the real conversation about, okay, let's pick a school and let's try this out. Let's do a pilot project. That's what we did with pre-K. With transit, metro expansion. That's a big picture thing that requires the council to be involved, but we have to sort of look for those opportunities, the smaller opportunities to move the ball forward. That's one thing. But I think the other piece I'll just wrap up is the council has enormous power to exercise oversight over the administration and the agencies that are tasked with making progress on some of these goals already, implementing some of the laws that already exist, where we're trying to make these things happen, reduce childcare costs, et cetera. And the council doesn't use that power effectively. And I think that's because I'm a Democrat. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I want there to be all Democrats on the council. But one of the problems with a one-party state is that there is an incentive, if you're an incumbent, to just go along, get along, to not rock the boat. If someone is incompetent, makes a mistake at an agency, don't call it out. That's going to make people upset with you. Just keep your head down. Don't criticize a colleague for corruption. That's what happened with Jack Evans. They just kind of kept their head down until they couldn't. But when you have that dynamic, you don't have real oversight. You don't have people saying to the chancellor, why is there no outdoor learning facilities at 2 years into the pandemic? Why are schools fundraising for air filters 2 years into the pandemic? How is that possible? Wow. Why do people not lose their job when there weren't the equipment in August 2021 for schools to be in person safely? I find that extremely bizarre that didn't happen. And it's because no one on the council made a stink about it. There were no real hearings. There was no pressure on Mayor Bowser to hold people accountable. Yeah.
Well, let me know why you're the best choice to represent Ward 3 on the council.
Yeah. So, the first thing I'd say, and this is a sort of a not an answer to that question, I think we need ranked choice voting. And I think this race shows it. And I'm supportive of the bill on the table right now to bring that to DC, because there are, I think each candidate is different. And I think I have a vision of a city that's really focused on making this a place where everyone can thrive. And it flows from my perspective as someone who was a teacher, someone who is a young parent dealing with 2 mortgages. That's what childcare is. It's a second mortgage. And then there's student loan payments, which thankfully I'm not paying right now. But we will soon, right? That's a third mortgage and a fourth mortgage for my wife's student loans, right? Those costs add up, and for families who are working and in jobs that don't pay enough, which there are many, that forces you out. So I think I have a vision on that, but I will say there are a lot of candidates who share similar platforms on different issues, and so I do feel for voters. I think. If we had ranked choice, we would also have a very different politics in the way we talk about each other and the way we make those distinctions. I think that there are a lot of folks who are running who would do a great job on certain issues that I care about. And I don't want to criticize them for that. But we have a zero-sum process currently that's going to result in someone winning with, 20%, which I find troubling. But yeah.
Certainly. Well, tell me, when does voting begin when's the primary, and when does voting begin?
So the primary is in June, June 22nd, I believe. I hope I didn't get that wrong. It's a Tuesday. But there will be mail ballots and there will be early voting. And I believe that mail ballots will go out to voters in May. So if you're registered to vote as a Democrat, this is the key thing. A lot of people, I'm collecting signatures right now, which if people live in Ward 3 and are registered Democrats, go to benbergmann.com and write to me, tell me that you're willing to sign my petition, because I'm looking for folks to do that. But, one of the things I encounter is like, people are registered to vote. They voted in the general election, but they didn't mark the box on the party because our primaries are usually not competitive, or they didn't update their registration. They voted in 2020 and they lived in an apartment somewhere else. Now they live where they live now, and they're not going to get the mail ballot. The mail ballot's going to go to that other address. So you got to go to, there are a lot of places. You can go, the DC Board of Elections has a process. You can do it online. If you already are registered, you can update it pretty easily. But and fortunately, DC, to its credit, is a great place to vote, and you can register to vote on election day. So that remains a process. You're not shut out of the process, but you won't be able to get the ballot
unless you're registered as a Democrat to do the primaries. Exactly. So we want our viewers to go ahead to headcount.org. You can check your voter status there. You can pledge to vote, register to vote, and get all of that together before the election. So once again, you can go to headcount.org to check your voter registration status as well as register to vote. Ben, tell me, what is one of your favorite things about living in Ward 3?
That's a great question. So I'm tempted to say, the abundant parkland and the great restaurants, but I think the answer is our schools. We have incredible schools. It's my son's DCPS school up the street, Mann Elementary, is a wonderful learning environment. The teachers are incredible. The school leaders are incredible, and it's such a privilege to be able to send him there and get a profoundly excellent education. I'm extremely confident of that. And I think, one of the dilemmas that we have as a city is that that's not something that every parent in the District of Columbia can say, that they're extremely confident that their child will receive the education that they deserve at their neighborhood school. In Ward 3, if your child is navigating the complex lottery process to attend a charter school, it's because there's something about that school that you find attractive. Your kid likes languages, they like science. And so even though they have a great school they can go to down the street, they would like to go to this other school that may be some distance away because of the curriculum, which is what charter schools should be, right? Is to fill that gap for kids who aren't being served for whatever reason in the traditional school system. That was something I had as a kid. I went to 6 elementary schools. I had a lot of behavioral issues. And finding that alternative learning environment was a struggle for my family. And I know that there are a lot of families in that boat. But it should not be that parents navigate that process because they don't feel like they have another option that they feel comfortable with. And so that's something that I care a lot about and I want to fight for. But I will say that I think the Ward 3, our school, is my favorite part of living here. And the reason why I live here, the reason why I chose to stay in the district was pre-K3, pre-K4, and Mann Elementary. And if those weren't there, I think the housing pressures and the education and the costs of childcare would have led us to leaving DC too.
I see. Well, how can people, find out more about you, find out more about your campaign, support, donate, volunteer? How can they go about doing that?
I love all of that, especially the last part. Yeah, benbergmann.com is the one-stop shop. I'm also on Twitter at BZBergman. I tweet a lot about DC policy issues, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook. But benbergmann.com, you can sign up for our mailing list. You can read more about my platform. You can volunteer there. And donations, the great thing about the DC's Fair Elections program, which is this new thing, it's the second election that it's been around for. Residents have real power to help fuel grassroots candidates. So I'm participating in fair elections, which means I'm not accepting any PACs money, any corporate money, and donations are capped at $50. So it's not the kind of thing where people who have $2,000 that they can freely give to me are having my ear, because it's $50 is the cap. That's the max. $5 is the minimum for to qualify for matching funds. So DC will match that money 5 to 1, and that will make a real impact. And I've recently qualified for public financing. So if folks donate, they will fuel a campaign that isn't connected to the insiders in DC, and we can make some real change. So people should definitely do that if they're willing.
Certainly. Well, thank you so much, Ben, for joining me today. Such a pleasure to get to chat with you, and I wish you best of luck on your campaign. To those watching, by the way, Ben's website will be in the description below, so you can go ahead, click on it, check it out, and follow, keep up, support, donate, all of that. So Ben Bergmann, that will be in the description below. Thanks so much, Ben, for joining me.
My pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you.
Awesome. Those who are watching, please follow Team Racing Productions at Team Racing on all forms of social media. Like, comment, and subscribe. But most of all, thank you for watching. Bye.